Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening or this morning, depending on where you are around the world. I'll
Happy
introduce.
time zone.
Yeah, yeah. I myself, Jaclyn, I'm in Melbourne, in Australia, so it's evening here. What about yourself, Shane?
It's just gone midday in Johannesburg, South Africa.
There you go. Excellent. We are here to talk to you today about retro actions. Stop talking, start doing, and how to master the art of impactful retrospectives. So, my co-presenter Shane and I have talked about this a lot and how to really improve retrospectives and get a lot more benefit out of them um, for the better of getting the business outcomes, really. Retrospectives are one of those things that can sometimes be seen as nice to have rather than as impactful as they could be. So, what we're here to talk to you about today is really how to amp them up and focus on perhaps a different area than you might expect in a retrospective, just to get the best power out of them. So what we'll cover today is we run a much bigger version of this workshop, and in today's webinar, we want to give you a flavor of that workshop. And it's really all about focusing on action, and that's how you'll get the best out of your retrospectives and really see positive change and improvements in your delivery flow. So we'll talk about the power of retros done well. We'll talk about agile anti-patterns and real-world struggles and why it's important to understand those and get to the root cause of them in order to amp up your retrospectives and make them really powerful and valuable. We'll run you through an overview of an activity that we run that's about looking at retrospectives from a fictitious but quite realistic team and seeing the kind of struggles they're having, which I'm sure will resonate with a lot of people, and looking for the anti-patterns there and what actions can they take that will be really powerful for them. Then we'll do a quick wrap up and talk about next steps. So to kick off, I'm going to hand over to Shane to introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name's Shane Raubenheimer. I work for Adaptavist. I'm an agile and technical consultant, so I've often worn both hats. So I am the do all things agile, but also get my hands dirty and with hands and keyboard.
Excellent.
Over to you, Jaclyn.
Thank you, Shane. My name's Jaclyn. I'm a senior product manager with Easy Agile, and I look after the TeamRhythm suite of products or set of products, which helps teams improve their workflow and get better outcomes. I'm also previously an Agile coach, although once an Agile coach, always an Agile coach to some degree. So
Yeah.
had experience across a number of different industries and countries in terms of teams improving their workflows to get better outcomes. So we come to you from both sides of the world tonight with that experience and looking forward to jumping in and talking about retros. As I mentioned, I lead the product on TeamRhythm, which is about helping teams improve their workflows to get better outcomes. And um, that's from improving their agility, their ability to adapt and learn and to make those improvements and changes. And the product that I manage, being an agile coach, we enable teams to do things like plan and prioritize their work in different visual ways, to estimate their work and refine their backlogs, think about the complexity of the work and how to break down that work, planning and prioritization, story splitting, and of course, retrospectives. Helping teams reflect is one part of the product. So we have user story mapping, we have retrospectives, and we have planning poker as components of the product. And tonight, to help us talk about retros, I'll be using the retrospectives part of our product. And we're a marketplace app from with Atlassian, so you can find us on the Atlassian marketplace.
Yeah, feel
And
free to do so at any point.
perhaps, Shane, before I move on, though, could you tell us a little bit about Adaptavist, given I've just given a bit of an overview about Easy Agile?
So we're a solutions-driven company. We're an Atlassian partner. We have various other partners, but we're essentially a problem solvers, solution providers, as opposed to general IT shops. So our specialities lie in helping enhance work problems through solution rather than throwing tools at it.
So not really not a one size fits all, but a
Definitely
problem
not.
solving support.
Absolutely, case by case, just like retros, incidentally, case by case, because while the construct's the same, the problem can often be very different.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. Let's dive in. So, Shane, tell us about the power of retrospectives. And we should caveat this. We know that a lot of webinars and workshops that you go to, this is exactly what they're about. They're about what are retrospectives? Why are they good? Why are they important? And we're not talking about that, Shane, are we?
No, we're not. And at the risk of sounding redundant, which we won't, um, the only purpose of us even having this slide was a perfect segue into what Jaclyn just said. Everybody knows what a retrospective is supposed to be, as it's clearly defined there. A session at the end of an iteration or a sprint where teams get together and discuss what's going on, what went right, what went wrong, what should change, and then it pretty much sits there. It is a good time, however, to reconnect, bond, and celebrate successes, in work and at each other. But again, to Jaclyn's point, that's not what we're here to tell you guys about. So another mandatory or obligatory slide, the who, what, and how. Who does retros? It says agile teams, but realistically, any functional department or group of people that do any type of work that need time to reflect, a retrospective should be broader based than just the technical delivery or software delivery space. The relevant people that should be in that are obviously the teams and anyone that might influence or be impacted by that team. You definitely need a medium of some sort to collaborate on, in our case, a retro board. And any representative in the retro needs to come with, at the very least, their ideas or issues that they need workshopped.
Absolutely. And the benefits?
So benefits is real-time feedback, face-to-face or virtual face-to-face collaboration, itemizing issues, identifying them, seeing where there's a crossover, discussing them, encouraging a culture of oneness and to be open. And it is a safe space, and it should be at the end of a previous sprint. And the concept behind it is obviously to start each sprint with a clean slate, but we all know that that never happens. But I think the biggest one is probably the last one that's highlighted. It gives a team of people the best opportunity to identify place to improve and actually do something about making that improvement a success.
Absolutely. The biggest opportunity in retrospectives comes from the actions. Taking that time to reflect is where you are mining for gold about what you could do better. What are the gaps? What are the time consuming or time wasters in your workflows that are holding you up or getting in the way of smooth delivery? And in that is the actions. And the actions are almost the most critical part of the retrospective. The only way you can get to the actions is through the reflection, but the actions are where the gold is in terms of it's really how you get that outsized impact by continuing to focus on the actions, finding those small actions that you can take or the bigger ones that you need help with, and then continually improving on what you're doing.
And I think just to add to that, Jaclyn, perceived items that need actions, and that's often the bane of a retrospective, identifying what we think the problem is and trying to action it at face value. And I think we're about to get into that, guys, with discussing anti-patterns and real world struggles, giving real examples and real actions.
Yeah, absolutely. I just to riff off what you're saying there, the other thing that often comes up is too many actions. So there's a lot of action that could be taken, and focusing on too much means you're not focusing on one thing as well.
Yeah.
If
It's
you're
yeah, and it should drive eating an elephant one bite at a time. And if that philosophy, I think, is often missed because, as you say, teams are so busy, so everything is important. So you try and do everything, you try and address everything, and end up addressing 100% of 10% rather than 100% of 40%. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we dive a bit more into splitting down actions in our workshop than we do here. But to your point before, anti-patterns are really where it's at in terms of finding the really valuable actions that you can take to improve where you are at the moment. So talk to us a little bit about anti-patterns, Shane.
so an anti-pattern is it's very common addressing of issues that reoccur. We apply to the fix of there's a recurring action rather than thinking a little bit broader about it and maybe understanding why do we keep getting the same issues. So it's really basically putting lipstick on a pig. So it's the veneer that we try and repair without understanding is there something larger than what we're actually trying to fix here. And some of the character I've just touched on superficial fixes. We with we do quick solutions that kind of like band-aid an issue rather than comparing similar issues with each other to understand whether there could be a root cause here that's bigger than what we're perceiving. Um, and I think the repetition comes in because it's because of we're misled by what the actual issue is. So we'll get a different version of the same issue running over and over and over, and it becomes thematic. And I think identifying the theme is what should be driving it. And I think, Jaclyn, do you want to talk us through how anti-patterns differ?
Yeah, I think what you've touched on there is the frustration that builds when you think you've solved the problem. You've had some great ideas or what seem like great ideas to address the issue, put them into practice, but the problem keeps reoccurring. And in terms of how they differ, that's kind of the crux of it, that it's treating the symptom rather than the root cause, because you may not understand the root cause or have delved in to identify the root cause. So as you say, it's putting a band-aid over a chasm and expecting it to fix it. It's
And
sorry.
no, go ahead. I'll
Oh,
go
it's
after.
often well intentioned. I was just picking up on the slide there. It's often well intentioned. No one takes action with the intention not to fix the problem. So it's about how do we identify the root cause and address that. And we've got a couple of ways. Well, there's a million different ways that you can identify it. But before we go into that, how familiar are people with anti-patterns? Are there any that with that explanation you can think of that might be either occurring or you've seen happen in the past?
We invite anybody who has something to add, maybe a thought of if something similar in their environments. Maybe if you could just post it in the chat and we could potentially talk about it. We will show some stock standard examples of what anti-patterns are, but it would be interesting for us to speak to somebody that has a real life issue or real life perception of an anti-pattern. Any takers?
We need some thinking music, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, I could hum, but I have an awful singing voice. So overcommitment in sprints is a great one.
Yep. Yep. The solution is often oh, our stand-ups got really long. You had to
So they
stop.
became sit downs. Yeah, yeah, that's a very common problem. Yeah, understandable.
That's an interesting one. We had to stop doing them. What do you think of
Yeah.
that?
Well, I mean, because instead of it being a check-in, it becomes a solution exercise or it becomes a problem-solving exercise. And that's a huge anti-pattern. And that's often done at the expense of one or all the ceremonies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Unclear requirements and scope creep. Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
definite anti-pattern. Yeah,
No action ever. Hopefully we can help you solve some of that today.
that's a
Teamwork.
great one.
Yeah,
Going through the motions, doing agile instead of being agile, doing it
yeah.
because you have to, and ticking the box and not really understanding why.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that stand-up one a little bit. I think it's a really common one. I know that I've worked with a lot of teams that initially it's very common for them to get frustrated with the events. Oh, we're suddenly doing stand-ups, we're doing retros, we're doing sprint planning, and it seems like there's a lot of meetings, more than there used to be, and that can
When
happen.
you
That
work.
stand-ups
Mm.
yeah, feel really long. So teams will stop doing them or they'll do them async most of the time. There's nothing wrong with balancing that out, depending on what works for the team. But the root cause when you dive in is often that the stand-ups are a status update for everyone. And
Yes.
the root cause is that the team are not working together to solve a problem or deliver a piece of work or finish a piece of work. They're working more as individuals on independent work, pieces of work.
And I also quite like the unclear requirements and scope creep. Um, you know, that's something that if all was equal, would be done in a group, in a grooming or an enrichment session or a planning session. And if it's getting to the point where by the time you've gotten your retro, it's still unclear what you were supposed to be doing, so you're doing whatever as well as creep. I think the anti-pattern there is calling that out and and pushing the concept of trade-off, or or better still, unpacking things to the point where you should understand them. And if you don't, that's action for a pushback of some sort. And I know it's not as easy as that, but that's definitely the underlying root cause for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate too, it can be tricky to get to the root cause. And as I mentioned before, there's a couple of different techniques that you can use to try to do that. We're going to talk you through one of them. Oh, sorry, we're going to give you some examples of other anti-patterns. I'm a slide ahead of myself. Did you want to run through some of these, Shane? I think we've
Yeah, I
got
think
some as
in
well.
one way or the other, we've addressed some of these to some degree. And I think tracking velocity, just the throughput, because that's what you're supposed to do for a 2 week sprint, rather than tracking why you're being effective or why you're not being effective. Um, Single man dependencies, or the hero culture as we call it. Cargo cult agile was mentioned. Following the rituals for because I was told to.
Hmm.
And to touch on the unclear requirements one, backlog noise, long list of tasks at lacking either interrogation or lacking enough acceptance criteria or requirement criteria to make it quantifiable and do something about it, right? So, but look, there are many more anti-patterns, and I think it's also good and important to point out at this point, by learning how to understand how to identify anti-patterns, it's also a segue into figuring out that a recurring problem might actually have nothing to do with your team or the
Mm.
cross-functional teams working on the same initiative. It might be something broader based. And we'll show you an example of one of the many methods to identify those kinds of things. Because one of the big actions that's often not taken out of a team is how to escalate that or elevate that into a stakeholder environment or into parallel teams that might actually have to do something first in order for it not to happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of those ways to identify the anti-patterns is to use a process called the five whys. And the five whys is really, it's a problem-solving technique to try to dig further than just the first initial symptom. Do you want to talk us through those layers a little bit?
Yeah, so the concept behind it is you often can define the problem because it's in front of you. So you ask, well, your first why is, okay, why is there a problem? And then once you as a team come up with the why, ask why that why. is happening, and so on and so forth. So the idea is to build on each perceived problem by interrogating it and understanding a potential lower problem, and so on and so forth. And eventually, the idea behind that is you ask why enough times, and you reverse engineer the problem. You actually end up getting directly to the root cause. On our next slide, we've actually got an example. I just encourage everybody to have a read. And this speaks to what I've just mentioned. So the first why is the issue. And then the second why is the answer to what we thought the issue was. So then you interrogate, okay, but why is testing an issue? And then from that question, you delve down into, okay, well, why aren't people diligently doing test cases and so on? And if you read through that, you'll see, but from the start of the problem, why does the deployment to production fail frequently? And the reason, your face value reason, was because integration tests often fail. And then by interrogating why they fail, why people aren't doing them, by the end of it, if you look at the answer to the fifth step of the why method, the real answer is because the team does not have a defined workflow or guidelines for maintaining test coverage as part of their development process. They might not even know it's part of their job spec. And hopefully this very rudimentary example, and there are many, as Jaclyn said, gives you insight as to how to unpack a problem below further than its face value.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell by an example like this that once you've drilled down, the potential solutions are very different to what they would have been if you just looked at that first step of what's going wrong. You
And I think
would probably look at fixing all your flaky tests rather than getting down to the problem of not having the right test strategy or capability within the team.
in the first place, yeah. And I just like to say at this point, Jaclyn and I do delve deeply into this in our actual workshop that we facilitate, but we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah, that's a good point. We can riff about anti-patterns and actions all day if you give us enough time. So what we're going to do now is jump into a bit of an activity. And you've got the chat, so we do want you to talk to us via the chat and respond. I'm going to use our retrospectives tool in TeamRhythm to show you the retros of a team. And this is a fictitious team, but a team that has some problems that are probably familiar to many of us, particularly those of us who've worked with product engineering teams. They are a bit frustrated as a team. They've got a lot going on and they feel like they're running out of time all the time to do things. And what we'd like you to do is spot what you think some of their challenges are and what you think the root cause of those challenges might be from the items that we're going to show you. So I'm just going to swap over my screen share.
And while Jaclyn's doing that, the idea here is we're going to arrive as the output example of the third retrospective, and maybe just look out and think about one of the methods we just described as the life cycle of the boards move through the different retros, and see what the culmination is once A, anti-patterns are identified, B, once teams figure out what their best method of approaching, identifying and problem solving these anti-patterns is, and then see the difference from retro 1 to retro 3. That is our sequence, right, Jack?
It is. It is indeed. Thank you. That was perfectly timed. So just making sure that you can all see can you see my retro screen there, Shane? I've shared
I
the
can.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So our team, sorry, I'll just pop that away. Let's have a look at some of the things that our team are surfacing. And the things that they want to start doing is blocking time out for deep work, add more details to tickets, something you were talking about before, Shane,
Yep.
and start post-release check-ins to catch issues. So we're starting to get the sense that maybe there's a lot going on. They're getting distracted, particularly by maybe support issues. They've asked to stop assuming others understand technical approaches, stop skipping backlog refinement. Okay. And we've got some reactions here too. So it's not just the one person that seems to be having the issues, not just the person that's raised the ticket on the board here, but their colleagues have come along and basically said, "Yep, I agree. I think we do have that challenge." We're celebrating Sarah. She's been triaging a huge flux of support tickets, and someone's given her some love here around that. And as a result of this retrospective, they have decided on some action to take, and that's around holding a refinement session and creating a checklist for post-release testing and trial limiting Slack notifications for 2 hours a day. So what's the sense you're getting so far from Retro 1? Yourself, Shane, and be interested to know what everyone else is thinking as well.
Well, firstly, there's a trend or a theme because there's collaboration by association to the problems that are coming their way. No clear balance of work versus support, and no clear distinction or prioritization between the two. I mean, I'm not going to say too much because I'd like people to respond in the chat, because if I say too much, we can just record.
Give it away. That's it. That's it.
Any takers? They want focus. Yes, that's a really good one. They're all over the place at the moment. So that's a clear that's a theme that seems to run through any type of description on any of these tickets.
Yeah, I feel like these two tickets might be related as well. This top ticket about, needing focus and deep work and
Yeah.
catching issues earlier. So why don't we quickly group them together? Uh,
Too busy and too many interruptions. That's absolutely right. Jack, do you just want to talk us through what you're doing there?
yeah, sure. So I'm just adding a group to this section here, and then I'm going to pop these items in that group so I know they're related.
Yeah, so we start to theme things.
Yeah, starting to theme things.
It's a tongue twister, that.
Yep, too many interruptions. What else we got? They have a lot on. Do they know what real value and priority is? That's a really good point as well. You do get the sense that they're just kind of moving and running as quickly as they can.
And that relates back to, measuring your team's success on the velocity or throughput, which is clearly not working because this is a put out all the fires as quickly as possible, but we don't know which fire we haven't put out yet, right?
Yeah, I love that comment. Is this my team's retro? I think this resonates with a lot of us. I'm gonna
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna move now to the next retro. And I also wonder, I'm just gonna go into the mood survey. Oh, no one's filled in the mood survey for this. So it says 0% happy, but I get the feeling no one's added their mood. So you've got zeros here. So still get the feeling that they're not super happy though. Okay, what have we got here? So let's start with stop. Stop starting work without clarifying who's doing what. It's an interesting one. Stop canceling sprint planning at the last minute. It derails the sprint. Oh, okay. So we're canceling collaborative sessions to understand things. Stop treating bugs as lower priority than features. Yep. Uh,
So yeah, so collaborating by not collaborating and kind of trying to plan or quantify on your own, it becomes very dangerous. And that's a good one to highlight the fact that agile ceremonies are actually work. They're not just a time to get together and brainstorm. It is applied work so that this sort of thing does not happen.
yeah, absolutely. And the actions that they've set up here. Now, this time we've only got one action that's been completed out of what's been popped in here. And let's just see what we had from the last most recent retro. We've got a couple of outstanding items. Okay. Pair on new onboarding, add a retro item to discuss sprint planning format, make acceptance criteria. Okay, but neither of these ones have been done. All right. In the interest of time, I'm just going to quickly go to the third retrospective that we've got here. Now, in our workshop, we will get you together in groups and give you some scenarios to look at and identify anti-patterns similar to this. Nish, we don't have a Jira link to send out. We're just sharing the screen today, but hopefully you can see the screen all right. Just looking at the chat there. Okay, so in our third sprint, we're getting similar themes popping up. Triaging bugs fast. So we're still dealing with a lot of support is the impression I'm getting, and we're still celebrating that we're managing bugs well. So it sounds to me, and I'd love to look at the team's insights around where their capacity is being spent. Seems to me they're spending a lot of time on failure demand rather than value demand. So, bugs coming in, having to fix things rather than on getting really valuable, marketable, profitable things out to the customer.
And I think that touches on almost all of the anti-patterns identified in the chat, as well as references the ones that we gave as examples. Because if you did collaborate properly first time around, if you did learn from your mistakes in your next retro, if you did unpack and quantify what the requirement was better, you'd be building better. So you're building as badly or as well as the information you're giving yourself.
Yeah. And we can see, the actions are starting to pile up as well that aren't either, being done, obviously, but there's also not decisions being made that we can't action these. So we're just, we're going to mark them as not doing at the moment and really home in on a select few actions that we think we're going to get the greatest improvements from. And so we're kind of building this incomplete action items backlog as well. And over time, we might start to see some similar themes popping up in actions that haven't been actioned that could be indicative of bigger issues or systemic issues.
Yeah, broader anti-patterns. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
great call out there, Jack, because I think that is one of the biggest issues is not understanding environmental issues can impact a team as much as their own collaboration does.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the chat, does anyone want to hazard a guess at some of the anti-patterns that are arising for this team?
They're being reactive rather than proactive is one.
Yes.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Skipping planning because there's too much to do. That's a really interesting one.
Yes.
Does seem to be happening, doesn't it?
And how do you plan for that not to happen if you're not planning?
Exactly. And you're correct. That is an anti-pattern and a really common one that we see. I might have mentioned it before. We're too busy, so we need to stop doing the agile events. And you mentioned it just then. They're not work. They're actually a really critical element of work. But perhaps things aren't being done to get the right value out of those events. And in particular, I'm seeing a lot around, we're getting a lot of bugs, and I'm seeing a lot around skipping backlog refinement or skipping planning or work not being very well understood. So to me, that maybe indicates that not enough time is being spent understanding the work and the value and the priority that needs to be delivered. So skipping those events is actually going to make things worse.
Yeah, and you're triaging everything. Like we said, you're putting a band-aid on something that you haven't interrogated properly.
Here's a good question. When are the actions identified in the retro are assigned in the retro itself or outside the retros? It's a very good question. And you can actually, well, in TeamRhythm, you can assign the actions in TeamRhythm, sorry, in the retrospective. So I could assign this one to myself. And you're right, that's another element, as well as your action items being smart. So two great comments in the comments section there to make sure that you've got a measurable outcome, and you know what success looks like of what you're trying to improve or what you're trying to achieve. And you have someone who's accountable as well.
I mean, it's almost like story pointing a story, right? Weighting the action should be treated in exactly the same way. It shouldn't just be an output. It should be part of a team's planning process, work process, rather than an output based on necessity exclusively.
That's it. And the final hot tip that I think we need to mention is making action items a first-class citizen. So
Mm.
ensuring that you've put a small portion of time aside, even if it's just one action item every sprint, and that's really easy to do in something like our product, where I can convert it to a Jira work item right on the board, and make it a task, and I can even say that I want it to be in the next sprint, and that automatically pops it in the backlog for the next sprint. If I know that we've always allocated, 5% of our capacity to that improvement, then the whole team can engage in breaking the actions down to a small manageable piece that they think they can do. And that's if that action item is within their sphere of influence, they're able to take that action. I will stop sharing now because I appreciate that we're running out of time, and I reckon I'm going to get the wrap up in a minute if I'm not careful. I'll quickly go back just to our presentation. And really, the key takeaways that we want you to take with you this evening or this morning, depending on where you're based, is retros done well focus as much on the actions, if not more on the actions, as they do on the reflection and the learnings. Do you want to take the next one, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, taking the time to actually interrogate if a problem is bigger than its superficial face value, and taking the time to understand and plan and to find out what the root cause is. And that's applicable through one of the many methods that we just showed you an example of. And target
Absolutely.
yeah. Small gains. Eat the elephant one bite at a time, but make progress each time rather than pausing actions which eventually become backlog, and do them along with your work, because just applying one action implies that that one action is going to make your next retro one action item better.
That's it. And we talk about the J curve of change, and a whole lot of little J curves add up to one big amount of change. And that's how you get the cumulative bigger change within how you're working.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much time we've got left for questions, but I'll open the floor. Please feel free to post more in the chat. Marginal gains, yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Shane and I are very passionate about actions, and that being the primary focus of retrospectives. So yeah, we're happy to have our brains picked.
Please, yes. Any Anybody? Any questions? Um, Not looking so, Jax. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
There's a big one.
icebreakers for online retros. The one that we just did, um, but one that I like to do, depending on what tool you're using. If you are using an online whiteboard tool, Then there's usually a host of templates and things. If you're running retros in TeamRhythm, we have our mood selector. But one is to get people to add an emoji uh, based on like whether they like one of two things. So like dogs versus cats or um, coffee versus tea, and get put people
Yeah.
to use a little emoji. And it's a quick way to get people to think about what they might have in common with each other. Uh,
Liking beer or being wrong is another good one. Um, there is a question here, so a statement. We don't have retros very often. So I think giving tips around how to raise their priority is treat the retrospective, especially once you start applying the tools to get actions out of retrospective, is to elevate the entire retro when it comes to ceremonies to a first-class citizen. It should be as important as your planning, as your refinement, as your check-in, stand up, not your solutioning. And once you start understanding what issues you're picking up on and how the actions and the more informative those actions become, how they better the success of a retro, it galvanizes the purpose and raises the priority of a retro. And I think it's important to understand, like when you start identifying things like root cause problems, it might be environmental, and that's a way to elevate the retrospective of highlighting a bigger issue within your organization than mere running of software development, as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple in there around getting people talking and engaging as well. Uh, I think something to remember with retros is even when you're doing them at the end of a sprint, don't feel that you have to run them about the sprint every single time. And if you're having trouble getting people to engage, giving them a topic or a theme that you know is a point that people have opinions about or thoughts about, or something that you know is bothering some people, then that can be a way to help people feel a bit more comfortable opening up. They're not having to think of new things. And of course, underlying all of that is psychological safety. And that doesn't come just from one retro, but it comes from building a culture and a team that have a good relationship with one another and trust one another. And building trust is about little bits of vulnerability. It's not about, talking about when you were 7 and your hamster died necessarily, but about, being and modeling that it's okay not to know everything all the time, or to ask questions and to support each other. And there's actually a really important part of this that's the prime directive of retrospectives. And I won't say it verbatim because I'll muck it up. But if you Google it online, it's there. And it is about starting the session with that, saying we appreciate that we all come into this session today knowing what we know, and with complete faith in each other that we did everything we could at the time with the information and the skills that we had to solve the problem. And it's kind of a reset of saying, this isn't about blame and pointing fingers. This is about us all pointing towards the problem and coming to it as a team rather than one to one. Any others in there, Shane?
Yeah. One comment is we use Miro a lot, so templates aren't really the problem. The problems only are discussed, but the items are never easy to categorize or turn into an actionable item. So, I mean, look, I for one agree. Whiteboard retrospectives are fun, but translating that into something actionable, very much like a team rhythm would do within the construct of Jira, would go a long way in taking an issue like that away.
Yeah, you
So.
feel like you're defining work rather than ideating, and ideation can get lost on a whiteboard.
Yeah, and especially if you're not instinctively understanding that to highlight the action, and you need to still translate it. And if you can kind of bridge the gap between the two through ease of use, then that works. That would work much better, right? Because otherwise, it's another job for somebody to gather all the action off a board and put them somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I feel like too, the point that you made earlier, Shane, around, or a couple of times, it's really important that retrospectives are seen as a critical practice that the team engages with. And it's part of their work, it's part of daily work, is interrogating and prosecuting your processes and thinking, how can we make this better and improve it? I mean, it improves, developer and employee experience as well. But bringing retrospectives to where people work can really help with that as well. And if work is managed in a tool like Jira, then it feels much more, this is part of the work that we're doing, and it's a much more related to the work that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Any more questions, guys, or should we dangle a carrot, Jack?
I think we dangled the carrot. I think we've kept people a little longer than planned already.
Okay.
So this was a taster of our a larger workshop that we run. First of all, if you'd like to take Team Rhythm for a spin, then there's the QR code there that will take you to the Atlassian Marketplace where you can give it a try and sign up for a 30-day trial. Have a play with it, and there's no config, so you're working with your real work items from Jira in the products. So you don't need to spend a long time integrating. It just works with your existing work items, your existing hierarchy, and everything like that. And
So the workshop that we keep alluding to, we've called it from reflection to rocket fuel, and it's a 4-hour workshop where what we've just glossed over in very high level because of the short time we've had, we actually delve into the intricacies and the how-to for what we've just explained at a high level. So it's an interactive, hands-on workshop where we'll use real data and we'll learn through the process of unpacking anti-patterns, identifying them, working on them, and making actionable outputs relevant and manageable.
yeah, and you'll learn how to do that for yourselves. So when you go
Yes,
back
more
to your
important.
teams, you can educate those around you, but also you can look at your retros in a different way and identify those patterns, understand how to get to the root cause of them, and then identify the best action that you can take in order to alleviate those problems. Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Again, I'm Jaclyn from Easy Agile. This is Shane from Adaptavist. We've really
Yeah.
enjoyed having you this evening or this morning, as I said, wherever you are in the world. Really appreciate your time, and we hope we've given you some food for thought. And we'd love to chat to you any further about actions or retros. So please reach out on LinkedIn or on our website, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, everybody.